it's too soon to feel happy, proud, sad, glad.
For 2 decades, Sig Hansen never asked for sympathy. Through storms, setbacks, and unimaginable danger on the Bering Sea, he kept pushing forward and rarely let anyone see what life was really costing him. But in recent years, everything began to change. A series of deeply personal challenges forced Sig to confront realities he had spent years refusing to face. And now, he's speaking more openly than ever before. What finally convinced Sig Hansen to break his silence? And what do his revelations mean for the future of Deadliest Catch? Join us as we uncover the untold story behind Sig Hansen's biggest revelations. The show that made dangerous work into must-see television. In 2005, Discovery Channel launched a documentary series about Alaskan crab fishing in the Bering Sea. The premise was straightforward. Follow real fishermen doing one of the most physically dangerous jobs in the world. Put cameras on their boats and let audiences see what most people would never experience firsthand. Nobody at Discovery knew they were about to create one of the longest-running reality shows in cable television history. The Bering Sea is not a friendly place. Located between Alaska and Russia, it generates some of the most severe weather conditions on Earth. Waves can reach 50 feet. Temperatures drop low enough that the metal decks of fishing vessels ice over in minutes, turning the entire working surface into a skating rink for men hauling 800-pound crab pots in the middle of the night. The mortality rate for commercial fishing in Alaska has historically been among the highest of any occupation in the United States. The fatality rate for fishing workers is consistently recorded by the Bureau of Labor Statistics as more than 20 times higher than the average for all occupations. Deadliest Catch did not exaggerate the danger. It simply pointed a camera at it. Sig Hansen was there from the beginning. As captain of the FV Northwestern, a 125-foot steel-hulled crabber built in 1977 by his father, Sverre Hansen, he was not just a cast member, but the show's gravitational center. The Northwestern was the boat audiences returned to most reliably. Sig was the captain who combined the Norwegian fisherman's stoicism with a dry humor and a genuine charisma that made him as watchable in a quiet moment as in a crisis. Sig Hansen assumed the captaincy of the FV Northwestern in 1992 at the age of 26, becoming one of the youngest captains in the Bering Sea crab fleet, following his father Sverre's retirement from active command. 20 years of Deadliest Catch later, the Northwestern is still going. Sig is still on it. But almost everything else about the world the show documented has changed, and Sig is finally talking about it. What does it mean when the man who has captained the same vessel for over 30 years starts using the word fearful in public interviews for the first time? The heart attack that was filmed live. On March 2, 2016, Sig Hansen was on the deck of the Northwestern during filming when he collapsed. Sig suffered a heart attack while filming Deadliest Catch in March 2016. He collapsed and was unconscious for a bit, all while the cameras were rolling. When he regained consciousness and wanted to continue crabbing, his crew convinced him otherwise, and he was airlifted to a nearby hospital, where he was reported to be in good spirits. 8 months later, he was back on the Northwestern. Not fully recovered, back at the helm, running a full crab season, pushing the boat and himself as hard as ever. It had been only 8 months since Sig's heart attack, and the veteran fisherman knew he was playing with fire. He knew and said it himself. He went anyway. However, the 2016 heart attack was not the last time Sig Hansen's body put its foot down on the deck of the Northwestern. 9 years later, it happened again, and this time, the medical professionals around him stopped being polite about retirement. In the season 21 finale, Sig was rushed to the hospital after he was found collapsed aboard his northwestern fishing vessel. Sig, who has previously suffered 2 heart attacks, met with a doctor, where he explained he'd been up for a day and a half and drinking around 15 to 20 cups of coffee. He also admitted he was still smoking. 15 to 20 cups of coffee. A day and a half without sleep, still smoking. On a body that had already experienced 2 cardiac events at sea. The 2025 collapse was not the result of bad luck or impossible circumstances. It was the predictable outcome of a man running a biological machine past every warning light it had. Following the incident, which aired on the season 21 finale, Sig's doctors encouraged him to consider retirement. The doctors did not suggest he consider cutting back. They encouraged retirement. That is the medical community's way of saying, "We are not sure you survive a third one." However, Sig just couldn't. "I don't think I could ever fully retire," Sig revealed. "Even if someone else was running the boat, your mind is still active. You're thinking about the weather, where they're at. You can never turn it off. I don't think I'd respect myself if I could just walk away from it completely." Little did he know that it wasn't only his health challenges that could force him to retire. Something was brewing beneath the sea that no one saw coming. Not even Sig. The crab catastrophe that almost ended the show's reason to exist. Deadliest Catch is built on a product. Without crab, there is no show, and no reason for Sig Hansen to be in the Bering Sea at all. And what has happened to the Bering Sea crab population since the mid-season of Deadliest Catch's run is a story that should be far better known than it is. The Alaska Department of Fish and Game canceled all Opilio snow, red king crab, and blue king crab seasons for 2022 to 2023, in a devastating blow to North Pacific fishermen and processors after trawl surveys showed a continuing crash in abundance. All of them. Every major crab season in the Bering Sea closed simultaneously for the first time in the history of Alaskan commercial fishing. The snow crab, which had shown a 60% boom in population as recently as 2018, had collapsed to the point where the federal government had no choice but to declare an emergency. NOAA Fisheries determined that a fishery resource disaster took place in Alaska's Bering Sea snow crab fishery after the 2023 to 2024 season was canceled due to a drastic decline in the stock's population. The factors mentioned caused the 2023 to 2024 Bering Sea snow crab fishery to experience a 100% revenue loss compared to the previous 5-year average, with no fishery resource disaster determination. Scientists have linked the collapse primarily to a 2018 to 2019 marine heatwave that dramatically reduced suitable habitat for Arctic species like snow crab, and warned that those warming conditions could recur every 7 years by current projections, and every 3 years by the 2040s. The crisis that closed the seasons is not a one-time anomaly. It may be the new normal. Alaska Bering Sea Crabbers, the trade organization representing the industry, estimated the direct financial losses at about $500 million. Fishermen who had invested in permits and boats within the 5 years before the collapse were looking at bankruptcy. Coastal communities whose entire economies ran on crab season revenue suddenly had nothing to run on. For Deadliest Catch, the practical impact was that the show had to adapt or die. Seasons that were built around the tension of hauling enough crab to pay a crew suddenly had to find new ways to generate tension when the crab was simply not there in the quantities that made the pursuit viable. The show moved operations, including the Season 21 adventure to Adak Island, in search of new fishing grounds, as the traditional Bering Sea waters became increasingly unpredictable. Sig has spoken about the crab collapse with a directness that the show itself has sometimes danced around. He knows the industry has changed, and that the world his father fished in, built the Northwestern and the Hansen family legacy, may not exist in its original form for much longer. The toughest lesson Sig Hansen learned didn't come from a storm or a mechanical failure. It came from looking back at his own life with complete honesty. So what did the captain who built his reputation on confidence finally admit about the role ego and greed played in his journey? The ego and the greed he finally admitted to. One of the most striking things about Sig Hansen's recent public statements is not what he says about his health. It is what he says about his own decision-making. Because the man who spent 20 seasons projecting unshakable competence from the wheelhouse has started talking about ego and greed in a way that reframes everything audiences watched him do on camera. Well, it was the icing down that was ego-driven, Sig remarked. And when you're ego-driven, and you're worried if you want to make more money, and your greed is thinking more than your common sense, it's not good. Icing is one of the most dangerous conditions a crab fishing boat can encounter. When temperatures drop fast and spray freezes on the vessel's surfaces, the accumulated ice weight can destabilize the entire boat, changing the center of gravity, reducing buoyancy, and creating conditions where capsizing becomes a genuine possibility. The correct response to severe icing is to turn back. Sig Hansen is admitting that there were moments when he did not turn back, because turning back meant losing money and losing face. That is not the story. Deadliest Catch was always telling about its captains. The show's narrative frame was built around competence and courage, experienced professionals making hard calls in impossible conditions, and mostly getting them right. Sig's admission that some of his calls were driven by ego rather than judgment complicates that narrative significantly. Sig's Fox News digital interview in August 2025 was one of the most open he has given in his entire television career. And the tone throughout was one of a man who has stopped performing invincibility and started telling the truth about what it actually cost him. The interviews that followed the season 21 collapse extended that vulnerability further, giving audiences a portrait of a man fundamentally recalibrating his relationship with the work that defined him. Sig Hansen's recent interviews revealed a captain willing to make mistakes he once would have kept to himself. But while viewers were focused on Sig's changing outlook, many were asking a different question. What happened to the brother who suddenly disappeared from Deadliest Catch? The brother who vanished from the screen. If you have been watching Deadliest Catch since the early seasons, you noticed when Edgar Hansen disappeared. He was a constant presence on the Northwestern as deck boss and lead engineer. He was Sig's younger brother. He was quick and competent and familiar enough to fans of the show that his sudden absence in season 15 left a visible hole in the Northwestern's story. Discovery Channel said nothing publicly. The show said nothing, and neither did Sig. Edgar Hansen simply was not there anymore, and the production behaved as though he had never been. Edgar's exit from Deadliest Catch came after he pled guilty to a misconduct involving a 16-year-old girl. His guilty plea came in July 2018, following a September 2017 incident, according to The Hollywood Reporter. Edgar pleaded guilty to fourth-degree assault with sexual motivation, a gross misdemeanor, admitting he intentionally kissed and touched the victim. He received a 364-day suspended sentence, had to pay court fines and fees of $1,653, and underwent a sexual deviancy evaluation and treatment, per the Seattle Times. While Discovery has not commented on Edgar's legal issues, he no longer appeared on Deadliest Catch after the court case in 2018. The situation surrounding Edgar was not the only legal difficulty the Hansen family faced during this period. Sig himself was embroiled in a separate and serious allegation. Sig Hansen is also awaiting a decision from the State Court of Appeals over a King County judge's ruling that would allow a sexual abuse lawsuit brought by his estranged daughter, Melissa Ekstrom, to proceed to trial. Ekstrom claims her father abused her as a toddler while her parents were divorcing about 3 decades ago. Sig denied the allegations entirely and submitted to a polygraph test, which he passed. The case did not proceed to criminal prosecution, but the existence of both allegations, against both brothers simultaneously, created a cloud over the Northwestern and the Hansen family name that the show essentially pretended did not exist while it was happening. During the police investigation, Sig agreed to a lie detector test, which he passed, and considering a lack of evidence, the court never proceeded with the case beyond an investigation. The silence around Edgar's departure was not something Deadliest Catch handled with transparency. For a show that had built 2 decades of trust with its audience on the premise of authentic documentary access, the decision to remove a major cast member without explanation and hope the audience would not ask too many questions was a significant compromise of that trust. Eagle-eyed viewers on Reddit and in closed captioning analysis have since claimed to detect Edgar's presence in background footage on the Northwestern in subsequent seasons, suggesting he may still work on the boat, just not in front of a camera. Discovery has not confirmed or denied this. Whether Edgar Hansen still works aboard the Northwestern or simply stays out of the spotlight remains unconfirmed. But as one familiar face disappeared from the cameras, another was stepping into them. So, who is the person reshaping the future of the Northwestern? The daughter who changed everything about the Northwestern's future. While the show was navigating Edgar's absence and Sig's health scares and the crab industry's collapse, something else was happening aboard the Northwestern that told a very different story about the future. Sig Hansen's daughter Mandy was becoming a crab fisherman. Mandy Hansen is a prominent figure on Deadliest Catch, best known as the daughter of legendary Captain Sig Hansen of the FV Northwestern. Born in 1996, she is a third-generation Norwegian-American fisherman in a family with deep roots in the industry. Mandy was not Sig's biological daughter. Sig adopted her and her sister Nina in 2002 when he married their mother, June Hansen. Sig adopted her. She is not his biological daughter, and she is the person he chose to eventually hand the Northwestern to. That choice, to invest the legacy of a 3-generation fishing dynasty in an adopted daughter rather than restrict it to blood, is one of the most quietly significant decisions in the show's history. Sig did not make it easy for her. At age 18, Mandy Hansen became one of the youngest women to fish in the Bering Sea during the winter months. She started as a greenhorn. The rest of the fleet was skeptical. The Northwestern had never had a female crew member before her. Sig himself was initially resistant to the idea, not because he doubted her specifically, but because the boat had always been a certain kind of place, and he understood what she was walking into. "Fishing is part of my heritage and culture," Mandy told People magazine. "I wasn't going to let anyone stop me, including my dad." She beat him and earned her place on the boat. Then she earned her captain's license through the Maritime Academy in San Diego, which technically makes her more formally qualified on paper than Sig himself, who learned by doing rather than by studying. And then she did something even more significant. In Season 21, Captain Sig Hansen gave his daughter, Captain Mandy Hansen, the chance to take solo control of fishing vessel Northwestern for the very first time. Solo command. The succession that Deadliest Catch has been quietly building toward for several seasons is now visible. Mandy Hansen is not just Sig's daughter on the show anymore. She is the next captain of the Northwestern. The man who spent 30 years refusing to acknowledge limits is building the architecture of a future he finally accepts will exist without him. The industry that made Deadliest Catch possible might be in a federal disaster-level crisis that may not fully reverse in the lifetimes of the people who built careers around it. However, Deadliest Catch was confirmed to be returning for Season 22 in 2026, with Sig still on board, defying every medical recommendation and actuarial table that suggests a 60-year-old man with 2 prior cardiac events should not be hauling crab pots in 50-foot seas. The truth about Deadliest Catch is that it was always a documentary about mortality dressed up as a show about fish. Every season was about whether these men would make it back. The crab was the MacGuffin. The actual subject was always the human cost of doing something this dangerous for this long. Sig Hansen is finally saying that out loud. And what he is saying is, it cost more than he expected, and he would do it all again. Should Sig Hansen finally listen to his doctors, or does a man who has spent his entire life in the Bering Sea get to decide for himself when it is over? And with Mandy taking the helm, the crab in crisis, and Edgar gone from the screen, is Deadliest Catch the same show it was 20 seasons ago? Or has it become something else entirely? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.